I don't have nothing to do with it. He just picked me up.
Oh yeah. We got like 10.
Not a problem. I've never been under arrest.
This large sum of money, discovered in a suspect's vehicle, was the culmination of a day that began with a single, predatory phone call. It started with an attempt to defraud a centenarian of her life savings. The target was a 100-year-old woman, living alone, who received an alarming call. The voice on the other end claimed to be a representative for her son, stating he was in jail and desperately needed $10,000 for bail. The scam was designed to prey on a mother's instinct, creating a sense of urgency and panic to cloud her judgment. Consumed with worry and fear for her son's safety, the elderly woman did exactly what the criminals hoped she would. She immediately left her home and made her way to the bank, intent on withdrawing the full amount from her account. Her mind was focused on one thing only: helping her son. She walked into the bank, her expression etched with distress, preparing to empty her account to pay the supposed bond. At the teller's window, her frantic demeanor and tears did not go unnoticed. A vigilant bank employee observed the woman's severe agitation as she requested the large cash withdrawal. The employee's training and intuition signaled that something was terribly wrong. Instead of simply processing the transaction, she discreetly made a phone call to the local police department. She reported the situation, explaining that an elderly customer was withdrawing a significant sum of cash under duress, likely the victim of a sophisticated scam. This single act of awareness and responsibility set in motion a chain of events the scammers could never have anticipated. The police understood the gravity of the situation immediately. They weren't just dealing with a potential financial crime. They were dealing with predators targeting the most vulnerable members of the community. Realizing the criminals were expecting to collect the money soon, they decided against merely warning the woman. Instead, they planned to use the scammers' own playbook against them by setting up a reverse sting operation to catch them in the act. An officer, Willis, was dispatched to the bank to assess the situation firsthand. Upon his arrival, he was briefed by the bank employee who made the initial call. She confirmed that the elderly woman had been instructed to withdraw $10,000 in cash and that the scammers had obtained her home address. This piece of information was critical, as it meant the criminals were planning a direct pickup, making them vulnerable to a trap. Officer Willis then approached the elderly victim. He spoke to her calmly, reassuring her that her son was safe and that the call was a hoax. He learned more details about the scammer's instructions, confirming they had told her to go home and await a call for the money exchange. After gathering the necessary information at the bank, Officer Willis made a crucial decision. He would personally escort the woman back to her residence to set the stage for the sting. He alerted detectives about the operation, coordinating a plan to intercept the courier when they came to collect the payment. The goal was no longer just to prevent a single financial loss, but to apprehend the individuals responsible and dismantle their operation. The quiet suburban home of a 100-year-old woman was about to become the backdrop for a police ambush.
Maybe. I won't be afraid to be here alone.
No, you wouldn't be alone through it. We'd be here.
Oh, well.
But like I said, it's going to be up to my detective how he wants it. He may call them himself, or I'm not sure.
Once inside the victim's house, Officer Willis and his team began preparations. He continued to speak with the woman, keeping her calm and explaining her vital role in the operation. She would need to act as if she had the money and was ready to hand it over. The pressure was immense, but her resolve to help the police was strong. As they waited, the anticipated call came through. The scammer, expecting to finalize the deal, called the woman's landline. Under the officer's quiet guidance, she played her part perfectly. She informed the caller that she had the cash from the bank and was waiting for instructions. The trap was now set, and the scammers were taking the bait. The police had the criminals on the line. Believing their scheme was succeeding, they instructed her to package the money and await the arrival of a courier. With the plan in motion, The police team prepared for the next phase. They created a decoy package containing a fraction of the money, just enough to seem legitimate, and placed it inside a brown paper bag. The plan was not to make the exchange at the woman's home, which would be too risky. Instead, they arranged for the drop-off to occur in a public, yet controllable, location, a nearby shopping plaza. This would allow officers to conduct surveillance from multiple angles without being easily detected. The victim, still coached by the police, called the scammers back and relayed the new location for the pickup as instructed. The criminals, eager to get their hands on the money, agreed without suspicion. With the location set, undercover officers moved into position throughout the shopping plaza's parking lot. They blended in with shoppers and commuters, their eyes scanning for anyone who might fit the profile of a money courier. The atmosphere was tense as they waited for the suspect to appear. Every passing car and pedestrian was a potential person of interest. After a period of watchful waiting, their patience paid off. A vehicle entered the plaza that matched the intelligence they had gathered. A man, later identified as Carlos, exited the car and walked towards the designated drop-off point. He moved with a purpose that immediately drew the attention of the surveillance team. He located the brown paper bag, picked it up, and turned to leave. At that moment, the signal was given. Uniformed and plainclothes officers emerged from their positions, converging on Carlos before he could even reach his vehicle. He was taken by complete surprise, with no time to react or escape. The sting was a success. He was swiftly placed in handcuffs as officers secured the scene. The man who had come to collect thousands of dollars from a vulnerable senior had instead collected a set of steel bracelets and a trip to the county jail.
Show me your hands. Turn around. Drop your back. Hey.
With Carlos in custody, an officer immediately began reading him his Miranda rights. He had the right to remain silent, but the evidence against him was already mounting. The arrest, however, was just the beginning of the investigation. The police knew that couriers like Carlos were rarely the masterminds behind these operations. He was likely a small cog in a much larger machine. Their attention quickly shifted from the suspect to his vehicle, where a second individual was waiting. Inside the car was a woman, Carlos's girlfriend, who watched the arrest unfold in shock. Officers approached her vehicle, their focus now on uncovering the full scope of the criminal activity. They knew the car could contain more evidence, potentially linking them to other crimes and a wider network of scammers. Her presence suggested she was, at the very least, an accomplice. The questioning of the girlfriend began immediately. Initially, she feigned complete ignorance. She claimed she had no idea what Carlos was doing and that they were simply in the area to run errands. She portrayed herself as an innocent bystander caught up in her boyfriend's mysterious activities. However, the officers were experienced and did not accept her story at face value. They advised her of her rights and began to apply pressure, explaining the seriousness of the situation. As she continued to deny any involvement, the officers initiated a search of the vehicle. It was during this search that the true scale of their operation was revealed. Tucked away inside a black plastic bag was not just the $10,000 from the sting, but tens of thousands more in bundled cash. The discovery transformed the case from a single attempted fraud into a major criminal investigation. The sheer volume of money indicated that this was not their first pickup of the day. They had likely been running the same scam on multiple victims.
So I'll ask you again, what are you guys doing here?
I don't know, for real. I don't know anything.
You got probably $10,000 or $20,000 right there. And what that tells me is you guys have been very busy today. Okay, this is not your first pickup today.
Confronted with the massive amount of cash, the girlfriend's story began to crumble. The police pointed out the obvious inconsistencies in her claims. The keys to the glove box, where some of the money was likely stored, were found on her side of the car. She was sitting directly in front of a fortune obtained through criminal means, yet she maintained she knew nothing. An officer bluntly told her that the Babe in the Woods routine was not going to work. He explained that the parking lot was covered in surveillance cameras that would show their every move. The evidence was not just in the car, it was all around them. Her emotional denials became less convincing as the physical proof piled up. The police made it clear that her best option was to cooperate. They were interested in the bigger picture, the network behind the scams. Her continued lies would only implicate her further. They weren't just investigating a single act of fraud anymore. They were looking at a conspiracy. The investigation later revealed the full methodology of the scammers. They used paid websites to trawl for personal information, specifically targeting elderly individuals who were more likely to be retired and living on fixed incomes. Their scheme was brutally effective, relying on creating a sudden emotional crisis to bypass rational thought. They would pose as a relative in distress, typically a grandchild or son, and create a believable story about an accident or an arrest. The money was then collected by a network of couriers, like Carlos, who would pick up the funds from these fake bondsman drops. In this instance, the police recovered over $150,000. While a significant victory, it represents only a fraction of the money lost to such scams nationwide. These criminal enterprises are vast and well organized, targeting countless retired Americans daily. As for the 100-year-old woman at the center of this case, her courage and clear-headedness under pressure were instrumental. She not only saved herself from financial ruin, but also helped law enforcement bring a piece of a dangerous criminal network to justice.